Great. I like it. For you, he went to
As I say, you kind of know this. You know of this phrase.
You say something to me.
I didn't know everything. Well, nice too. It's here somewhere.
Always there. Yeah, that makes
I called some right now. Anyway, it's just
Tell me your girl.
I'd say You said water in there where the hospital repairs.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Socialize afterwards if you like. We don't honk the horn or blink the lights to get you out of here, because we have plenty of time to fail. Well, I'm Tommy Rouse. I want to thank you very much all for being here. It's nice that we're able to get together now. And I think it's so important that you're here because your presence here has a lot to do with the healing process. But if you can reach into your pockets and purses, pull out your cell phones, and make sure they're on mute. Make sure they don't go off during the service. And now I'm going to turn things over to Brian for our word study.
Good afternoon, everyone. As TR said, thank you so much for all of you being here. I'm sure it means a ton to the family that, one of the only good things about a time like this is you get to see some friends you haven't seen in a while. And I can always tell a lot about the person we're about to celebrate by a couple of things. I love to come in and see the pictures in the display so I can tell if he was a big hockey fan. That says something about it. But the other thing is just kind of listening to everybody. And you guys are a little rowdy, and so that might say something about Jim as well. And Ann did such a great job. We talked, and when I talked to her, I said, I am a firm believer that every life is a story that deserves to be told. I absolutely believe that. And she just did a great job of telling her part of his story. And one of the things she told me was that one of the things that Jim appreciated more than anything was he wanted people to appreciate the lighter side of life, no matter the circumstance. So we are here today, first of all, to mourn his loss. And I understand that even though there were health issues, this was fairly sudden. And I'll be honest with you, from what I do a lot of these, a sudden loss, you can multiply the grieving process by 10. It's just, you just kind of feel like your bearings have been ripped out from under you. So give yourself a break that way. So we are here to mourn a loss, but we're also here to celebrate his life. Because it sounds like he was the kind of guy that liked to celebrate, and people around him appreciated that. So, I think as we get older, we start to ask ourselves some of the tougher questions of life. And one of those questions is, did my life matter? Did I make a difference with the years that I was given, with the people that I was given the love, and the people that love me back? Did it make any difference at all? And you guys are showing in a strong number today. And, I spent a lot of time on this Facebook with Aaron's permission, and so many comments on there. It is no doubt that Jim's life mattered. He made an impact with the years that he had and with the energy that he had. And I'm a big believer in something that I refer to as holy collisions. And what I mean by that is, if you think back over the course of your life, there are certain times in your life where you ran into the exact right person at the exact right time of your life for the exact right reason you needed to run into that person. Many of you may be sitting next to one of your holy collisions right now. And you go back and think about that first moment you met. What was it that you saw that led to a second conversation and a friendship and more? And one of my favorite parts of the story that Ann told is how they met a long time ago. Even as teenagers, they were both at a church camp near Wilmington. I think Quaker Knoll was the name of it. And he says that they met near a water fountain. That's his version of the story. She said that it was really more on a nature hike. And I've been around long enough to know that a woman is always right. So we're going to go with the nature hike. And this is the quote. She said, "We went on this walk together and Jim let nature take its course." I had no idea what that meant. I did not press her on that. I know that there was allegedly a kiss on that nature trail, but they were at church camp, so we'll give them a break there. But that, and then their lives, that was their holy collision. And then their lives kind of took them on a different path, I think for about 17 years until they were able to reconnect, which then led to a 33-year marriage. And that was supposed to happen. You know, our lives all take twists and turns that maybe looking back we wish they hadn't have. But I'm a big believer that our lives are seasons, and you guys had a great season together. But I say that also because whenever I had the privilege to do a service like this, and it truly is an honor, I was telling the boys this a little bit ago, I consider this group of people in this room at this moment on this day, we're our own version of a holy collision. There's really no reason to explain why this group of human beings would ever be in the same room at the same time, other than whatever your connection is to Jim and the family. So with that comes some responsibility. You're now part of the healing process. You're part of the community now. But there's no doubt that when we all parked our cars a little bit ago in the parking lot, every one of us have concerns and worries and decisions that we're all trying to make that maybe nobody else in this room knows about. And they're going to be waiting for us when we get back in our cars. But whenever I get to do a service, I have one simple goal. My prayer is that by the time we get back in the car, we're going to be a little bit better off than we were when we came in, simply because we took a time out and listened to this story about Jim's life. And so that's the prayer today. And so before I go any further, if you're comfortable joining me, I'd like to ask you if you would to just join me for a quick word of prayer. Okay? God, I do thank you for this holy collision of friends and family that have gathered together. I'm sure that the stories of how their paths crossed would take the rest of the day into tomorrow to tell all the different stories. But I thank you that we've all been able to come together today to share in this time of mourning his sudden loss, but also celebrating the energy that he brought to so many relationships. So God, I pray that you have promised that when life is really difficult, that you will try to find ways to bring us comfort. And so whether that's seeing an old picture or an old friend or hearing a story or just taking a few moments to reflect on Jim's story, I pray that you will keep that promise. That you will find ways not only today, but in the weeks and months to come to continue to bring comfort and peace and hope in this time of loss. In your name we pray. Amen. You know, 74 years, to be honest, is kind of hard for me to wrap my head around. That's just not very old. It's just not old enough. And one of the frustrating things about planning a service like we couldn't stay here long enough today to tell enough Jim's stories to really do his life justice. But I'm a big believer there's a big difference between a human being and a human doing. In our culture, we put a lot of focus on what it means to be a human doing. You know, if you and I were to meet for coffee for the first time, we would probably ask each other in the first 60 seconds, what do you do? Or what did you do? Because we attach a lot of our identity to whatever we are able to perform with our occupation. I understand that Jim was a successful human doing. You know, he was a machinist and model maker out at Wright Pat. I'm going to read a comment that a friend made about that here in a few minutes. For over 25 years, he did that. It sounds like he's the kind of guy that liked to stay busy, whether it was fishing or shooting or photography or cooking or following his hockey team. I've spent a lot of time on his Facebook page. He had a lot of varied interests. He was kind of all over the map of the things that he was interested in and kept up his feet on. So he was a great human doing. But what I heard from Ann and what I gathered in the pictures and just by the sheer number of you guys being here today is that he was even a better human being. It sounded like he was a fun guy to be around. You know, when I first saw his picture, I kidded with Ann. I said, he kind of has a Santa Claus look about him. And she said when they were at Target, he would tell kids that he was Santa's evil twin, just to kind of keep that going a little bit. This is from one of the people that wrote on Facebook. Rich said, "I will miss you, old friend. You were one of the most creative people I knew, though I know you didn't think of yourself that way. The work you did in your career, making parts for huge airplanes, when all you had to go by was a picture or a rough drawing. It was amazing. You also were one of my best read friends. You always said you wished you had been smarter in a book sense, that you sometimes felt like you could not hold your own with some of the folks on Facebook. But you were so wrong about that. You more than held your own. Your patience, your tolerance, your desire to always be fair and consider how others might be feeling made you special. I will miss your daily chats with God. May you be having them face to face from now on." And then another person, Ellen, said, "This is a tough one, Sir Jim. I'm a bit paralyzed. You somehow, via cyberspace, got into my heart these last few years. Tomorrow's mornings will never be the same. You will be missed. Until perchance, whatever other space, I hope we meet again." You know, and those little clues, to a person that did not get the privilege to know him, those little clues say a lot about the kind of man that he was. I had asked Ann, if you were to pick a few words or phrases to describe Jim, not only the way you knew him, but the way that you think other people knew him, what would you say? The first thing she said, and I love this, I've never heard this before, she said, "You had a smile on your face when you walked away from Jim." I thought that was pretty profound. He was a genuine person. He wanted people to appreciate the lighter side, as I've already said. And then we talked a little bit. I said, we learn a lot about a person when we watch them maneuver the ups and downs of life. No doubt over 74 years, there were high highs and low lows, because that's just what life is. I said, as you watched him, what did you learn about him by the way that he handled some of those moments? And she said he was very open about his feelings and his opinions, and then he would work them out. He would somehow work them out so that he could move on. She did share that his mom's passing hit him really, really hard. And what that tells me about him is that he felt very deeply. And, it is said in life that we're born once, but we die 2 times. The first time we die is a physical death, and that has now happened at way too young of an age and way too suddenly. But it's going to happen to every one of us in this room. We don't know where, when, or how, but it's going to happen. But the second time we die, in my opinion, is more tragic, because the second time we die is the last time anybody ever says our name out loud. It's the last time anybody ever tells one of our stories. One of the beautiful things about a week like this, somebody had to go through all the old shoeboxes and albums to get these pictures out. And I think pictures are powerful, because every one of them is a story. A lot of times you gotta read on the back. And I have 3 sons myself, and I worry about them because all their pictures are on a phone or the cloud, whatever the heck that is. And I think there's something really powerful about an old Polaroid that you can hold in your hand and try to figure out who that is, because they were much younger and there might be a little chicken scratch on the back. And my encouragement is, don't be too quick to put the pictures away. Get a copy of this DVD that they put together, and because there will be times. I lost my mom a few years ago to cancer, and it's been years, but there are still days today that I'll think I'm past it, and something out of the blue will happen to remind me of her. And that's going to happen with you guys too. And my encouragement is, whenever that happens, stop whatever you're doing and just let that moment do whatever that moment's supposed to do, because that's where the real healing takes place. One of the last things we talked about was his belief system. And I know that Jim believed, I could tell on Facebook, that he believed that this life was only chapter 1, that there is a second chapter. I told Ann I was a pastor for 25 years until 15 years ago, and I'm a big believer that there is a second chapter. And based on everything that I have been able to hear, everything that Jim said on Facebook, I gotta believe that if a guy like Jim is not living in heaven right now, then the rest of us are in trouble. And I believe that he's getting to have those face-to-face conversations. Maybe some debating going on from what I saw, but he's getting to have those face-to-face conversations now. And he seemed like a guy that will anxiously be waiting to get to see this group of people someday again. And that's the beauty, is that if you share that belief system at all, then on a day like today, you don't have to say goodbye. You can simply say, we will see you later, and mean it. I like to close with a reading. I wasn't sure I was going to share this, but I hope it's appropriate. I hope it captures Jim's spirit. It's one of the most powerful things I've ever heard, and I do this in honor of what Ann told me about him, and what I'm gleaning together was the kind of energy he brought. This is part of a speech that Anna Quinlan gave to a group of graduates one afternoon at Villanova University. It's one of the most powerful things I've ever heard, and I'll close with this. She said, you walk out here this afternoon with the one thing that no one else has. There will be hundreds of people out there with your same degree. There will be thousands of people that do what you do for a living. But you will be the only person alive who has sole custody of your life. Your particular life, your entire life. Not just your life at a desk or on a bus or in a car or at the computer. Not just the life of your mind, but the life of your heart. Not just your bank account, but your soul. People these days don't talk about the soul very much anymore because it's much easier to write a resume than it is to craft a spirit. But a resume is a cold comfort on a winter night, or when you're sad or broke or lonely, or when you've gotten back the test results and they're not so good. So she said, here's my resume. I try to be a good parent to my kids. I've tried to never let my profession stand in the way of being a good parent. I no longer consider myself the center of the universe. I show up, I listen, and I try to laugh. I'm a good friend to my friends, and they are to me. Without them, there would be nothing to say to you today, because I would simply be a cardboard cutout. So I call them on the phone when I can, I meet them for lunch, I show up, I listen, and I try to laugh. I would be rotten or at best mediocre at my work if those other things were not true, because you cannot really be first rate at your work if your work is all you are. So here's what I wanted to tell you today. Maybe if Jim were here, this is what he would tell all of us. Get a life. Get a real life. Not just a man pursuit of the next promotion or a bigger paycheck or a larger house. You think you'd care so very much about those things if you blew an aneurysm one afternoon and found a lump in your breast. Get a life in which you're not alone, and find people to love and people that will love you back. And remember that love is not leisure. It is really hard work. So pick up the phone, send an email, write a letter, kiss your mom, hug your dad. Get a life in which you are generous and realize that life is the best thing ever, and we have no business taking it for granted. She said, I learned this many years ago because something really bad happened to me, something that if I had had my choice would have never happened at all. But it has taught me the biggest lesson of life. I learned to love the journey and not the destination. And I learned that this life is not a dress rehearsal, and today is the only guarantee we get. So I tell everybody I meet the following advice. Consider the lilies of the field. Look at the fuzz on the back of a baby's ear. Read a book in the backyard with the sun shining in your face, and learn to be happy. And think of life as a terminal illness, because if you do, you will live it with joy and passion as it ought to be lived. And it sounds to me that that's the kind of energy that Jim brought to this thing we call life. So again, on behalf of all of us here, on behalf of the family, thank you all so much for being part of this holy collision today. I hope you can stay afterwards, and if you have a story to share, do that. A hug, a handshake, it all means so much. So thank you so much for letting TRI be part of your family and your friend group here today. Thank you.
He's really good at that. Listen, thank you very much for coming out. If you're welcome to get up and visit with the family some more. And we do have coffee, cookies, and water around the corner, so you're going to help yourself with that also. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, folks, this is some of this photography up here. If you'd like to come up, take a look at that, and some of the paraphernalia that's up here also. All right. Good to see you.
Right, Howard. You can fit in this chair.
So somebody's gonna watch us out of it. Susan, I don't know if you've ever met Martha.
Oh, hi. Okay. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe one time, yeah.
Martha's the one that drives her around.
Flowers okay? Yeah, no problem. She did a great job. You must be one of these. Well, I can't hold He's gonna tell you how good looking you are now. I know that's how much back there. Baldy. Baldy back there. So sorry, your dad was our neighbor. Yeah.
Hey, what else? Breaking beer. What else is it? Thank you very much. Yeah, we got